This is part 2 of stacking and decorating a 3-tiered cake. To see how I got to this point, go to part 1 where I cover all the cakes and get them ready. Now those baking paper circles from earlier are coming in useful now for me adding the dowels and the central dowel in. This 10-inch cake is having an 8-inch on top of it, so I get the 8-inch circle from earlier and just mark on the 10-inch where I'm going to put it. This helps me place the dowels and make sure that they are as far out on the circle as possible, rather than all bunched into the middle. So I just use a cocktail stick to mark the middle and then go around the outside doing some dots, and this is where I will put my dowels as far towards this as I can. Because an 8-inch cake is going on the top, I will use 9 dowels plus a central one, and I just mark with an edible pen where the cake comes up to on the dowel, and I do this for every single one. I then line them up and cut them all to the size of the longest dowel. So even though this cake is even and level, there will be some parts of it that are ever so slightly higher than the others, and that's where the dowels need to be. They all need to be the same height as the highest point on the cake, and this will help to get the whole thing nice and level. So once I've done this, I line them all up and look for the longest mark and cut them all to that size, and then I insert them all into the bottom tier. This cake was only being delivered 3 minutes down the road, but I wanted to deliver it all stacked and ready, so I decided to do a big central dowel just to make sure all the cakes were really securely attached to each other and that they weren't going to start moving. So this is the central dowel here. I'm just popping that down into the middle, and then this is royal icing going all over the top. And then I get the next 8-inch tier. This is on a board with a big hole underneath the board, so that gets slid onto the top nice and securely, and I just have a little play with it and look at where I want it to sit. And then this is a 6-inch going on the top, so I did exactly the same with a 6-inch circle, marked all around the outside, and then cut 7 dowels actually in here, again marking on them where the highest point of the cake was and cutting them all to that size, and then inserting them down into the 8-inch cake. The 6-inch cake was on a board with a hole in the middle as well, so I just slid that on the top. And then that's the 3-tiered cake all ready for the rest of the decorations. Again, just royal icing here, or you can use ganache just to secure the cakes in place. And I know that they're not going to move because the royal icing acts like glue, and there's a big central dowel going all the way through as well. This is an anniversary cake, a 40th Ruby anniversary cake, so the theme was white, pink and red. I made these roses last week, so they were nice and firm, so I just attached those with royal icing. And I made some other flowers to dot round as well. This is actually based on a wedding cake I did quite a few years ago that she really liked, so I went with sort of copying that as close as I could. She asked for some sage green as well, so I incorporated that with the leaves and added the topper and the ribbon and beads, and here is the finished cake all ready for delivery. I'm so pleased with it. Tiered cakes I always get a little bit nervous about because you've got to think about all the structures and supports in them, but I was happy with how this turned out, although it weighed a ton, and thank goodness my husband was working from home because he helped me put it in the car and actually delivered it for me. And that's how I stack and decorate a tiered cake.